Welcome back, everyone, to the Temple of Technology. I am your host, Scott James Magner, the idiot with a microphone. And as you can probably guess from the background behind me, it's time for another episode of the Ars Entertainment webcast, So Here's the Deal, where I examine my collection of physical media, talk about what it means to me, and share a little knowledge along the way. Today, we're going to be reviewing one of my favorite movies, Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I've got a great Blu-ray copy here that I picked up a few years back, and I rewatched it this morning with the commentary track on to make sure that I've got the full disc experience. So, let's get to it. We're going to head over to the screening room to watch the trailer, and then we'll talk about my thoughts. This is a pretty strong trailer. It does a lot of heavy lifting. It really picks up the pace and introduces a brand new Marvel character. We'll go over the history of this character in the next section, but for now, let's just watch this quick video, get jazzed for the MCU, and away we go.
Throughout my life, the Ten Rings gave our family power. If you want them to be yours one day, you have to show me you are strong enough to carry them.
You are a product of all who came before you. The legacy of your family. You are your mother. And whether you like it or not, you are also your father.
I told my men they wouldn't be able to kill you if they tried. Glad I was right.
You're just a criminal who murders people.
Be careful how you speak to me, boy.
I thought I could change my name, start a new life. But I could never escape his shadow.
My son, you can't run from your past.
Is this what you wanted?
You got this.
Thank you.
Jab, left foot, right hook.
All right, so that trailer came out pretty early in the year 2021, but the movie had been delayed a few times, and this is one of those bits where the trailer really informed the movie and vice. So let's go talk about the movie. So if the name Shang-Chi is familiar to you, I'm not surprised, because it is a comic book character that has been around in Marvel Comics pretty much my entire life. In 1973, writer Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin invented the world's greatest martial artist, based on the visual depiction of Bruce Lee and the character that he had played in Game of Death. Shang-Chi was originally intended to be an unknown son of the fictional villain from the pulp novels Fu Manchu. And they got that for the first 10 years of his life in Marvel Comics. In fact, it was a solo title that went up until 1983. He was the son of Fu Manchu, and then they lost the rights to Fu Manchu, licensed from the Sax Rohmer novels. So, wanting to keep the character going and doing stuff, they changed his father's name to Zheng Zhu, with Z's. I know my my accent is terrible, but it was really, really a good character. And it a lot of stuff had connections to all the other Marvel martial artists, like Iron Fist, the Darts of the Dragon. There are a few other series over the years, and I'm trying to think about what really to say about this more than I need to. But it was a good, strong character, and it really, when it popped up for Secret Wars in 2015, which is the big hook that's coming up for the MCU, is Secret Wars, where they were reinvigorating all their properties. They were showing all the cool things that they could do with their old heroes and bring them back in. It was kind of a surprise to people because Shang Chi had simply just fallen off the wayside. There were some cool things, but not a lot of cool things. They would keep trying to start. They keep trying to start a new series, and then it would fail after a bit, and then start a new one and fail after a bit, and that pretty much kept going after Secret Wars. But it was 34 years between the 1983 cancellation and 2017 before they picked up Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu as a continuing feature, and then he's been kicking around ever since. This movie, however, was 2021. It had been in development since early 2018. It was a strong character. It was something that people really resonated with, and they wanted to bring into the Marvel Universe. This movie did okay at the box office. It really did. It didn't make a ton of money. It made about $400 million against a $200 million budget. It played well internationally with Simu Liu, as you saw there. You also saw probably some MCU Hooks with the Abomination, Emil Blonsky's Abomination. They did use the voice of Tim Roth in that scene, and Benedict Wong as Wong, the master, the Sorcerer Supreme of our dimension. We didn't know he was the Sorcerer Supreme at that time, but we knew he was Wong, and Wong has quickly become the Coulson, the Agent Coulson of Phase 4 and 5 as it goes through. Also has Awkwafina, Menger Zhang, Fala Chen, and some real heavy hitters in Michelle Yeoh, Ben Kingsley, and Tony Leung. Now, if you don't know who Tony Leung is, he is a massive star in Hong Kong. He's been in freaking everything. And one movie you may be familiar with him being in was The Killer. And The Hard Boiled and The Killer. And he was just, when Tony Leung showed up in your movie, it was going to be awesome. And this was his first American picture. It was probably the biggest production he'd ever been in. But he did such amazing things like Hero in 2002, Hard Boiled in 92, as I said. Red Cliff in 2008, you may also have seen him in. But he's just amazing. He's simply amazing. He's done action, he's done drama, he's done everything. He's still making movies, right? He's doing great. Having a good time all the way around. So the plot of Shang-Chi is fairly unique in Marvel movies because a lot of it is done in flashback to both Shang-Chi's childhood and his father Wenwu's childhood, Wenwu being Tony Leung's character. and their history throughout the ages. Wenwu and the 10 rings that he's got around his arms are well over 1,000 years old, and the rings may actually be 20 to 30,000 years old because they're alien artifacts from somewhere else, which is explained in the post-credits scene by none other than Bruce Banner. But he found them, became a warlord, and conquered a lot of China, and then gave that all up when he found true love in Shang-Chi's mother, who was part of a mystical dimension called Talo. The movie follows Shang-Chi as we see him in America living a very simple life, parking cars with his friend Katie, who's Awkwafina, and he gets drawn back into the world of his father and the world of the supernatural when Wu is trying to reclaim his murdered wife's spirit from the afterlife, and he believes that the people in her village that she had left behind to be with him and raise children, he believes that a voice he is hearing is his wife talking to him, and he's wrong. I won't sugarcoat that. He is very, very wrong. He's actually being spoken to by an evil creature from another dimension that's even further out than that of Talo. And hilarity ensues, and eventually Shang-Chi, Katie, Shang-Chi's sister, Xialing, who Shang-Chi left behind when he abandoned his father's criminal lifestyle, and a very surprised character of Ben Kingsley as Trevor Slattery, whom we saw in Iron Man 3, one of my personal favorite Marvel movies, playing the Mandarin, and in the short called Hail to the King, where he has actually busted out of prison, the same prison that Sam Rockwell's Justin Hammer is in, by the Ten Rings organization. And the Ten Rings were seen in the original Iron Man as a terrorist organization that had kidnapped Tony Stark to make weapons for them. So Trevor Slattery has a connection with a mystical being called Morris, a Hundun, a six-legged, winged creature with no head and no mouth that exists simply on magic. He has a connection with this thing. He thought he was hallucinating it. He wasn't. He had tapped into it somehow telepathically, and they all get to Talo, and once they're in Talo, they meet Michelle Yeoh, Oscar winner Michelle fucking Yeoh, who turns out is Shang-Chi's aunt. So, as hero stories go, they go on a journey, they gain more powers, they fight the good fight, they fight the bad guys, and then they come back to their real lives. This would be great if it actually worked, because Wenwu is winning for almost all of this movie. He has all the power, the Ten Rings are unbeatable, and when he gets to Talo, he just has his army go and attack everybody, while he goes off to do what he thinks is to rescue his wife. Turns out he is trying to rescue an evil being called the Dweller in Darkness, which is a really, really deep cut for... It's a Marvel Comics creature, but it's a pretty deep cut because it's also a Cthulhu monster. Right? So he frees this monster. It starts eating people's souls. Its army starts eating people's souls. Wenwu's army realizes that fighting the people of Talo when their souls are literally being ripped from their body is ridiculous. So they join forces, and Shang-Chi has to confront his father. He confronts his father. His father knocks him completely out, throws him in the lake, and goes off to do his thing. And while Shang-Chi is in the lake, he is rescued, in fact, by a dragon. The water dragon that you saw in the trailer is the great protector of Ta Lo and that whole other dimension. So Shang-Chi takes the lessons that he's learned from his aunt, from his mother, from his father. He combines all this knowledge in a really cool action sequence, and eventually gets the 10 rings from his father by simply being a better martial artist and a better person. And then he throws them away, saying, I don't want these. I don't want this. You need to give these rings up and just come home with me. Which when Wu says, nope, I got them. And so he takes the rings back. They fight some more. And as the Dweller in Darkness reveals himself as the true source of that voice, Wen Wu dies, and he realizes that he's wasted his relationship with his son and all the things that he could have had. Gives the rings to Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi and his sister are able to use their abilities to defeat the Dweller in Darkness with a surprise arrow shot by his friend Katie, who is good at everything but never commits. And during their time at Ta Lo, she is trained as an archer, and turns out she has a natural aptitude at that too. And she shoots a magic arrow at the magic monster, kills it. Then Shang-Chi, or rather severely wounds it, and then Shang-Chi uses the rings to destroy the Dweller of Darkness and drive it back through the wall. It's all a really long, long way to go to say the good guy wins. And then he just goes back home, parking cars again with Katie. Until Wong, whom we saw in an underground fight club run by Xialing, Shang-Chi's sister, comes to get them because they've got the 10 rings, and drags them away to a life of adventure. So this movie is really tight. It's one of the movies that's on our list of films that we will sit and watch whenever we see it on television. Whenever. No matter what part of the movie it is, we see Shang-Chi is playing and go, oh, we'll just watch that. Another movie of this vintage is the subject of one of my previous videos, A League of Their Own, which I will watch anytime, anywhere. And I promise I'm not going to cry talking about Shang-Chi. But it has a lot to do with fathers and sons. And in late 2021, my father died. And I didn't have a lot of time with him because I wasted a lot of my life, but also he and my mother split very early on in my life. And when I had a head injury, I basically lost my childhood. I lost all childhood memories of him, save for just a few flashes here and there. And those kind of flashes are the only memories that Shang-Chi has of his mother, because she died and left him at a very young age. So this movie hit me really, really hard when I saw it in theaters. And I've seen it half a dozen, maybe a dozen more times all the way through. But I've seen bits and bobs of it a few dozen more than that, because it's always on TV, and because it tracks really well, and it breaks up into commercials fairly well. It's tightly shot. And so the directors and writers were both Asian. In fact, it had an Asian director, an Asian writer, a predominantly Asian cast. There's only 2 white guys. One of them is a villain, and one of them is Ben Kingsley, playing Trevor Slattery, who's kind of a villain, but kind of, just Trevor Slattery. He's comic relief. The MCU really starts here for Phase 4, because the previous entry in Phase 4 is the Black Widow movie, which was really an afterthought because it had just released far too late. It should have released in 2020, early 2020, hot on the heels of Avengers Endgame, but it was delayed and delayed and delayed. And it got delayed so much that it delayed every other movie in the MCU, to the point where we had 4 MCU movies that hit in 2021 when there should really only have been 2. And so there was Black Widow, Shang-Chi here, The Eternals, which I'll cover in a video later this week, and then Spider-Man No Way Home. Or is it No Way Home? Far From Home. Spider-Man Far From Home. So the MCU was really packed tight in 2021, and there was a bunch of TV shows that were going on Disney Plus this whole time too. So it was a really packed landscape and a really great time to be a nerd in Marvel Comics. But at the same time, there was just too much stuff packed in too short of a time. So a film like Shang Chi didn't really have the financial success it should have had because it came out a month and a half after another movie, Black Widow, and a month and a half before third MCU movie in the Eternals. And there were TV shows going on the entire time all the way in there. So where the Avengers movies were a year or 2 years apart, and Avengers Endgame made $3 billion. $3 billion. It's one of the highest grossing movies ever made. I feel like it is the highest grossing movie ever made until James Cameron decides he wants to re-release Avatar or Titanic again. It's a really, really tight movie. Well done, well put together. And the disc is chock full of special features. And so there's the commentary that I watched today, which is a really good commentary. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the comments to this to my commentary on the commentary rewatch that I've done. I've done it for all the MCU movies to date through this. So this would be 26 movies that I have done this commentary rewatch for on my website, scottjamesmagner.com. And I'll put a link to my rewatch I did for that today at the end of this video. But for now, I just wanted to reiterate how much I like the movie. I keep saying that. I love this movie. I love it a lot. But as discs go, I bought this disc in December of 2021. And I watched it immediately, but I didn't get around to watching the commentary until now because I kept hoping that they would come out with a Black Widow commentary. And also, I really, really like the Eternals movie, even though it has some deep fundamental problems, which I'll go over in the episode I do for the Eternals. And I think I watched the Eternals a bunch of times in the theater when I could have been watching Shang-Chi at home, to tell you where it all sits up. And the Eternals is not on my list of movies that I'll sit and watch all the way through because it doesn't play well on television. It doesn't do well to advance the MCU. In fact, it made less money than both Black Widow and Shang-Chi. So it played, and a lot. Shang-Chi and the Eternals didn't release in China, whereas Black Widow did. And it's kind of weird that really, really good movies came out in 2021 that not a lot of people saw. But since they weren't making billions of dollars, they were only making hundreds of millions of dollars, people thought they were failures. And they were not failures. They were critical successes. Shang-Chi has a 92 Rotten Tomatoes rating and a 98 tomato popcorn meter, which is the fan rating, right? So there's critic ratings and then fan ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. They did that because movies like Black Widow were getting review bombed left and right by misogynist assholes. And that isn't a problem that Shang-Chi had, but it was an Asian movie written about Asian people, by Asian people, directed by an Asian man. And it didn't hit well with a lot of people who look like me. I won't say certain words, but people who look like me don't like this movie as much as they should, because it's a really, really good banging action movie. And if you're into action movies, it's great. If you're into kung fu movies, it's really good. If you're into Michelle Yeoh, she is all over this movie, and she is awesome. And Tony Leung, one of my favorite Hong Kong actors, in some of my favorite movies. In fact, I will probably talk about Hard Boiled at some point. It's that good of a movie. It deserves its own half an hour. But that's where we are with this. So thank you for watching. Thank you for paying attention here. By all means, go check out the other So Here's the Deal movies that I've been doing. But also go check out my website, scottjamesmagner.com, to see my MCU commentary watches and the kind of movies that I like to the kind of movies that I like to review and look at and see. I'm a big fan of the MCU. I watched the Fantastic Four movie last week. I've seen all the MCU movies this year, and there's another one come out in a few months. I'll go see that too. I can't help myself. It's really, really good stuff. But there's something else you can do for me, and that is buy some books. I am a science fiction author and a game designer and a video blogger. So I care about messages and stories and the people that tell them. And to this end, I formed my own small press publisher, Ars Entertainment, to help science fiction authors and authors in general get their books back into print when they had been taken out of print or they'd had bad experiences with other small presses, or they just could never quite find people to advocate for their stories. You can buy books that are science fiction, you can buy heroic fantasy, you can buy dark fantasy. There's even books of horror poetry up there. And I'm working on more deals all the time to try and get more content up there. In fact, you can go there and get one of my books for free, Homefront, my science fiction novel that I published in 2014. I got the rights back in 2018, and then I turned it into a trilogy of books that you can also pick up there. But you can get the ebook for free. You should. But you can also go get Ars Entertainment books at libraries, at bookstores, online, wherever you want to buy books. Our books are there. So support independent authors. Support Ars Entertainment, a progressive publisher who focuses on independent authors. And support yourself, because you need more stories in your life. We're all stories in the end, so make sure that yours is a good one. That's it, my video for today. Thank you for watching. My stream is ending. This has been an Ars Entertainment webcast, so here's the deal. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.